Hello, I'm Gary Sinise. Tonight, we celebrate the work of the real-life heroes of the U.S. Coast Guard, men and women who protect and serve us in so many ways. Your attendance tonight supports our nation's Coast Guard members who serve and protect local communities, enable American security and prosperity, and preserve our maritime environment. They are at once our neighbors, our lifesavers, and our protectors. They are truly semper paratus, always ready. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program.
Welcome, and thank you for inviting the Coast Guard Foundation into your homes this evening for our Heroes of the Coast Guard virtual event. And thank you, Gary Sinise, for kicking off tonight's program and for your outstanding support of the men and women who serve this great nation. Since August 4th, 1790, when oceans swell and storms rage, the members of the United States Coast Guard have time and time again risked their own lives to save those in danger. We all typically associate the Coast Guard with these fearless life-saving missions, whether it's fishermen aboard sinking vessels at sea or families in need of rescue following devastating hurricanes. But we don't often think about, and maybe not even know, all the other missions they accomplish every single day. Their unseen efforts on behalf of all Americans in and out of the water, defending our shores against enemies, protecting the marine environment, and guarding our country's vast coastline and ports, just to name a few. We know not everyone can rescue somebody by dropping out of a helicopter or boarding a submarine in open water to seize tons of illegal drugs. So you might be asking yourself, what can I do? You can stand by the Coast Guard. You too can be a hero. By supporting the Coast Guard Foundation, you enable us to assist the men and women of the Coast Guard, which makes a profound difference in their ability to fulfill their call of duty. As one Coast Guard member stated after we helped evacuate and relocate his family when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, it really meant a lot to us that our families were being taken care of, and it helped me focus on my mission. Remember, even heroes need heroes. Now, it is my great honor to introduce one of our own heroes, the highest ranking member of the United States Coast Guard, responsible for all its activities worldwide and overseeing over 88,000 active duty, reserve, auxiliary, and civilian employees. Admiral Karl Schultz, Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, joins us this evening to talk a little more about the heroic actions of the men and women of the Coast Guard.
Thank you, Susan, for the introduction. To the Coast Guard Foundation and to all your generous sponsors, thank you for all you do to support our United States Coast Guard workforce and the larger Coast Guard family. As you know, the United States Coast Guard secures the homeland, advances our nation's economic prosperity, and serves as a steward of the environment through our 11 statutory missions. Our extraordinary Coast Guard personnel perform these missions with pride, guided by our service's core values of honor, respect, and devotion to duty. As Service Chief, I get to hear about the great work performed by Coast Guard personnel every day. So today I'd like to take a moment to share some noteworthy cases with you. In March, 3 air crews from Air Station Cape Cod, 1 plane and 2 helicopters, in concert with the Royal Canadian Air Force helicopter crew, rescued more than 30 fishermen off the disabled and adrift fishing vessel Atlantic Destiny, which was floundering in 30-foot seas and 50-knot winds 130 miles south of Nova Scotia. The Coast Guard air crew included Aircraft Commander Brian Cutterly and rescue swimmer Adam Bailly. Commander Cutterly claims that the case introduced the most challenging conditions for hoisting that his crew had seen, and he notes that teamwork and training enabled their success. In April, Brian and Adam were also part of the air crew that rescued 5 fishermen from the 100-foot vessel Nobska, as it was engulfed in flames 85 miles east of Cape Cod this time. In May, the U.S. Coast Guard Advanced Interdiction Team, 4 deployed with the Navy's USS Monterey, a guided missile cruiser, discovered this cache of illegal cargo on a dhow in the northern Arabian Sea. As you can see, these interdicted weapons barely fit on the deck of the 567-foot warship. This example is just one of many of how U.S. Coast Guard teams enhance maritime security in support of the United States combatant commands. In June, the crew of Coast Guard cutter Tahoma offloaded more than 7,500 pounds of cocaine, an estimated street value of over $140 million. These were drugs interdicted by their own crew, as well as 4,000 pounds interdicted by a Coast Guard law enforcement team, embarked aboard Canada's HMCS Saskatoon. In fiscal year 2020, Coast Guard actions led to the interdiction of nearly 380,000 pounds of cocaine and other dangerous drugs in the transit zone, depriving transnational criminal organizations of more than $5.4 billion in profits and preventing these drugs from poisoning our local communities. As you know, 2020 was a record hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin, with 12 tropical systems making landfall in the United States. Every one of them affected maritime commerce and marine stakeholders. Major storms blocked channels with sunken vessels and debris, as well as displaced buoys. After Category 4 Hurricane Laura passed through Louisiana in August, Coast Guard crews from across the southeast expediently enabled deepwater traffic to resume transporting America's vital energy resources. In 2020, Coast Guard captains of the port and the 8th Coast Guard District alone reopened critical Gulf Coast waterways and ports 35 times to allow naval and maritime traffic following the storm's closure to resume. This type of work is in addition to the rescue operations associated with these storms. Each of these missions has the potential to place our workforce in dangerous situations, oftentimes far from home. Yet time and time again, our Coast Guard workforce answers the call. Our service motto, in which we take great pride, is Semper Paratus, or always ready. Every day, the Coast Guard workforce approaches their duties with a bias for action to save mariners in distress, to thwart illicit activities, and respond to contingencies. Every day, the Coast Guard workforce engages across a wide range of international, interagency, joint service, and maritime organizations to forge networks to solve problems and achieve common goals. Every day, our Coast Guardsmen place service before self. Our line of work can be a challenging sell. Unlike the much larger DoD services, the Coast Guard only needs about 4,000 recruits and 500 new officers to replenish our ranks each year. Yet as the talent pool shrinks, with only 29% of Americans aged 17 to 24 eligible for military service, those who are able to serve, who also have the propensity to serve in the Coast Guard, may be persuaded to join our sister services, as they offer far more appealing signing bonuses. A recruit's family often influences the decision as well. As service chief, I can't provide scholarships to spouses for encouraging their support of the Coast Guard, but the Coast Guard Foundation can and does. Last year, the Coast Guard Foundation provided over $500,000 in scholarships for our enlisted members' dependents. Thank you. As service chief, I don't always have funding to support unit morale initiatives or fitness equipment upgrades, little things that make a big difference to a duty station. But the Coast Guard Foundation can and does. Hundreds of Coast Guard units from Guam to Puerto Rico have received shipmate funds to replace or upgrade fitness equipment, as well as buy outdoor recreational gear so unit personnel can enjoy the area where they work. Thank you for enhancing our unit morale. And as service chief, I can't offer funds to get our members out of financial bind, maybe triggered by a natural disaster or another cause. But the Coast Guard Foundation can, and the Coast Guard Foundation does. So thank you for helping our members when they were displaced because of a fire, a flood, or other set of circumstances. awarding scholarships, supporting health and wellness, and providing disaster relief assistance demonstrates that the Coast Guard Foundation truly cares. They care about our people, like Brian Cutterly and Adam Valle. They care about our units, like the Advanced Interdiction Team embarked on the USS Normandy and the crew of Cutter Tahoma. In caring for our individual Coast Guardsmen and teams, they care about our service, and they care about our national security. Why? Because the care of the Coast Guard Foundation allows our members to concentrate on the mission. So thank you to the Coast Guard Foundation for supporting our Coast Guard workforce, who for 231 years have constantly stood to watch, enhancing our prosperity, advancing our national security interests both near and far from home. Semper Paratus.
The Coast Guard saved the lives of my son, myself, and my grandson. Y'all saved 3 generations out there.
No, we tried. I thank these guys from the bottom of my heart. They're just good people.
Thanks to U.S. Coast Guard.
If it wasn't for you, I can honestly say I wouldn't be here right now. Thank you.
Just can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you. I thank God every day for all of the Coast Guard.
You know, how do you thank people for saving your life? Thank you doesn't always seem right. You know, it doesn't sound like quite enough.
These are great young men and women. You see the best that our country has to offer. And they are so unassuming. Coast Guard members are humble. They're just ordinary people, but let me tell you, they do extraordinary things.
That's why I joined the Coast Guard, to bring home people home safe.
So it feels good to save someone's life, but you know, in the end, I was just doing my job.
I'm just glad we were there to help them.
The United States Coast Guard is always ready. Ready to save lives, ready to protect the environment, and ready to defend America.
Coast Guard, we are taking on water.
When Coast Guard members and families face challenges or new opportunities, the Coast Guard Foundation is there. We are the proud Americans that devote our resources to our homeland heroes.
We need everybody to be at the top of their game and fully focused when they suit out and go on the mission. Part of the way that we can ensure that they are focused is that they know the Coast Guard Foundation has their back.
Good evening. I'm Brad Sisley, Senior Vice President of Development for the Coast Guard Foundation. It is my privilege to come to work every day to support the heroes of the United States Coast Guard. But let's remember, heroes come in many forms, from donors who support the foundation with a small monthly gift, to multinational corporations giving large annual sponsorships, and individuals who have selected to leave the Coast Guard Foundation in their estate plans. Each gift is important to the overall success of our work. The foundation is able to tackle the toughest challenges facing Coast Guard members and their families because every donor and every dollar is critical to our mission's success. The Coast Guard members could not do what they do without the foundation's support. And the foundation could not do what it does without each and every one of you. Now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Tom Allegretti, Chairman of the Coast Guard Foundation's Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Brad. I would like to begin by personally expressing to each and every one of you how much we appreciate you joining us this evening. Whether you are a longtime supporter of the Coast Guard Foundation, or if this is your first introduction to our mission, a warm welcome. It is a privilege to lead and work with the great group of generous men and women who make up the Coast Guard Foundation's board. Together with our talented and dedicated staff, we work to ensure that the foundation is effective and fiscally healthy, and most importantly, has the necessary funding to support our mission and prepare for the unexpected. We can provide resources no one else can, and we can do it quickly, thanks to our donors who make that possible. You are our heroes. You may know that the foundation recently launched an annual corporate sponsorship society, which offers new ways to partner with us throughout the year. This level of annual support provides a significant and consistent stream of income to fund the many programs that the foundation offers to the men and women of the Coast Guard and to their families. I am pleased to recognize tonight Lockheed Martin Corporation and Cheniere Energy as our first two corporate partners in this society. Thank you, Lockheed Martin and Cheniere. Additionally, I'd like to thank this evening's sponsors for stepping up to underwrite this event: Ceres Terminals, ConocoPhillips, and the St. Francis Yacht Club. Thanks to their generosity, tonight's program is streaming into homes and offices all over the country at no cost, bringing you a behind-the-scenes look at the heroic work of the Coast Guard and what the Foundation does to support Coast Guard men and women. I invite you to join me and this evening's sponsors to make sure the Foundation stands always ready to answer the call. Even heroes need heroes. Thank you all. Please enjoy the rest of tonight's program, including a word from our annual sponsor, Lockheed Martin.
Thank you, Tom. Our generous supporters provide vital funding to fuel our work. The Foundation listens to Coast Guard leadership, service members, and their families to develop and enhance programs that truly improve their lives, including initiatives focused on education, family resilience, health and wellness, and strengthening their communities. We understand the realities facing Coast Guard service members, as well as the unique challenges that come with their decision to serve our country. Once again, it comes back to heroes needing heroes. So as Susan asked earlier, what can you do? You can offer your support right now. Text CGF21 to 76278 and be a hero tonight. Now, I'd like to give you a glimpse into who else benefits from your support. The Nelson family suffered a terrible tragedy when their husband and father, Captain Thomas Nelson, died during a training incident. The Coast Guard Foundation stepped in to take care of the family, not only in the immediate aftermath of their tragic loss, but also by providing resources for the future educational needs for the couple's young daughters.
Roger that. How did they look from your end? Everything look good and safe on your end?
Tom was an energetic, smart, very considerate human being. He was a presence, you know, he's 6'3", red hair, and just, I thought he was a handsome man.
My dad was a pilot, very smart and humble though. We had a great relationship. Kind of like a best friend, I guess. So it was very nice.
Oh, he loved to fly. That was his passion. Any chance he got, he would get into that seat and say, let's go.
My dad graduated from the Coast Guard Academy in 1988, and he was in the Coast Guard for 20 years until he passed away.
One of the realities of work in the Coast Guard is we put our people in very, very tough situations. They act with extreme professionalism and bravery and courage. He died in a training accident with a small boat. The cable for the hoist line to the helicopter fouled on the small boat and actually, pulled the helicopter down. In the types of missions we perform, we want our people to be prepared. And unfortunately, in the process of doing that, we actually expose ourselves to risk as well, because you have to practice if you're going to do. And some of our tragic losses have occurred while we're actually trying to prepare to do our mission better.
Yeah, of course, I miss my dad. It's very hard, but you learn to be strong.
The Coast Guard Foundation was there for me. They were behind the scenes and they took care of everything. I mean, just making arrangements with the family, coordinating car, picking up from, just every little thing that you don't really think about.
I remember just always seeing them around, and they would introduce themselves. Hi, we're part of the foundation. We just want to check in on you.
I've been a single parent since 2008. It's not a hardship, but it is difficult to make ends meet, especially when, you know, the provider, he's gone.
And we need to look at the long-term stability of these families after they've suffered these losses. So one of the things the foundation is able to do is provide resources for education for children of fallen heroes, and we're very proud that we're able to do that.
Because Tom died in the line of duty, the Fallen Hero Scholarship is offered to the children.
I didn't really know that I was getting a scholarship until I applied and got into Virginia Tech.
This scholarship provided 100% coverage, tuition, and if she needs a laptop, she can get the laptop, the books. I was just floored.
Basically, everything that you pay for college or anything attached to college, they pay for. It means a lot because I don't have to worry about anything, and then my sister's also covered.
Adriana will be graduating from college. At the same time, Aurora Jean will be graduating from middle school. She has time, but still, it's comforting to know that she can go apply to whatever school she wants to. Like her father, she soaks everything in.
I just want to say thank you to the Coast Guard Foundation and everyone who supports them, because they support me and other families. They provide so much love and care for us.
It was just surprising and just comforting to know, wow, somebody else is looking over my daughter and her education. Being a single parent, you worry about that.
One of the things the foundation can provide is to let the Coast Guard family know that we have their back.
It means a lot because without the Coast Guard Foundation and the Coast Guard, I'd be lost. Plain and simple. I'd be lost. Thank you. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Stand with us this evening to support the families of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country, like Captain Tom Nelson. Text CGF 212-76278. Be a hero tonight.
As the president of the Coast Guard Foundation, I am humbled to be a part of the team helping families like the Nelsons navigate their way through uncharted waters. It's understood in the Coast Guard world that when a person becomes a member of the Coast Guard, their families do too. And that's why, with your help, we will continue to make it a top priority to be there for the families, the behind-the-scenes heroes to our heroes. So please give now. Text CGF21 to the number on your screen. Your support is vital to our ability to be there for our heroes. Education is the cornerstone of our mission. We award scholarships for the college and trade school-bound children of Coast Guard members and veterans. And we provide grants and scholarships to those spouses of our enlisted members. When active duty members are transferred to their new units every 3 years, that means families must pack up too. With each move, children are enrolled in different schools, spouses search for new employment, and the family adjusts to an unfamiliar community. And through all of these transitions, the foundation steps in to be part of their support system. And now, it is my true honor to introduce to you the new Vice Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, the service's first female 4-star Admiral, and the first person to receive the Gold Ancient Trident Award for her service in the Marine safety field. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Linda Fagan.
Thank you, Susan, for the introduction and for highlighting the great work by our Coast Guard personnel. And thank you, Coast Guard Foundation, as well as all your generous sponsors for the amazing support you provide to the women, men, and families of the United States Coast Guard. I'm here today as the 32nd Vice Commandant and first female Coast Guard 4-star Admiral, because the Coast Guard gave me opportunities to learn, to contribute, to to lead, and to thrive in challenging situations. And I can tell you that the Coast Guard offers countless opportunities every day for our workforce to learn, to contribute, to lead, and to thrive in challenging situations. And they do. But to excel, we need to learn and grow from experience. We need to reflect on what went well and what we can do better. And that's why we train, exercise, and seek to improve. Coast Guard operational commanders often use the mantra, train, maintain, operate, to establish unit priorities in challenging situations. We rely on muscle memory, habits formed in training. We rely on dependable equipment, and we adhere to operational doctrine. That's why we train to respond to contingencies. Contingencies like fires aboard ship at sea, because when a crew is far offshore and there's an emergency, they have to be self-reliant. We train in oil spill response to minimize environmental damage when spills happen. And we prepare for hurricane season long before June 1st, so that when storms approach, we're ready to save lives. The Coast Guard takes pride in being always ready. The Coast Guard Foundation takes pride in being always ready. They are always prepared in support of Coast Guard personnel or units in need so that our members can focus on training, maintaining, and operating to be always ready. Thank you, Coast Guard Foundation and the sponsors of this event for your support of our Coast Guard women and men, their families, and by extension, our United States Coast Guard, this year and always.
At that point, Mom was in really serious condition. Her pulse wasn't really there. She was cold. She'd been fighting for her life for over an hour at this point.
During our transit back to the air station, the machine advised me to begin CPR. And once I saw that message, I was kind of taken back. I'd never performed CPR on a person despite my EMT training.
Watching him put the pads on her chest and seeing that there was no pulse.
One of the main problems with chest compressions is the correct depth, and to get to that correct depth takes effort.
I've taken CPR classes, and I know how exhausting it is to do, 5 cycles of CPR, 120 compressions. That's exhausting. I mean, he had to be so exhausted.
Once we successfully loaded the patient into the ambulance and the paramedics declared that she had a pulse, I knew that she was going to be in good hands and get to a high level of medical care, which she desperately needed. So I thought my job was done, and it was actually my chief who came up to me and said, the paramedics are so short-staffed just because of all the calls that had been coming on throughout the duration of the day. Can you ride with the paramedic to the hospital? So at that point, I felt like I needed to finish this thing through. I needed to complete the mission and stay with this patient until she got to where she needed to be.
Did CPR the whole way. He did CPR the whole way.
Just to see her being transported and a team of doctors and nurses, surround her and give her the treatment that she needed, was just an absolute relief. And if I'm honest, I was exhausted.
Hi, I'm Ron Lebrecq. I retired from the Coast Guard in 2018 after more than 30 years in uniform. During that time, I repeatedly saw the incredible impact the Coast Guard Foundation and its partners had on the members I served with and led. And now I'm honored to give back every day as a member of the Coast Guard Foundation staff. Thank you for what you do for our Coast Guard members and for joining us this evening. While the public may associate the Coast Guard with thrilling rescues and keeping boaters safe on the water, many do not realize the life-saving assistance Coasties bring to communities after hurricanes and disasters. To put this into perspective, in the first 10 days after Hurricane Katrina, the Coast Guard saved over 30,000 people. I was in New Orleans after Katrina. I saw the suffering and fear in the faces of survivors, and I marveled at the compassion of the Coast Guard members who brought them hope, even while their own homes were flooded and their families dispersed across the Gulf Coast. But some missions don't have anything to do with the water. Earlier this year, Coast Guard rescue swimmer Trevor Salt was lowered from a Coast Guard helicopter to save 2 stranded hikers in Oregon. One had fallen from a cliff and was critically injured. Petty Officer Salt built shelter from the fierce wind and stayed with that hiker overnight on a steep and frigid mountainside. He administered medical care until they were evacuated the next day. And of course, there's a tragedy that has impacted us all this year, the pandemic. When COVID-19 first appeared in the United States, 125 cruise ships carrying U.S. citizens were stranded with no port to take them in. The Coast Guard worked with the CDC and state and local agencies to safely return those Americans to their families. Take a look at how our Coast Guard members answered the call and see how even heroes need heroes.
We had never responded to something like this before. We knew we would have to take risks because people's lives were on the line, and they were depending on what we would do next. We had begun the year hearing of this pandemic that was occurring in the Far East.
COVID-19 continues to spread worldwide.
Life on lockdown. If they find sort of one person who tests positive, suddenly these cruise ships need a place to go.
In the midst of this uncertainty, that's when I got the call.
We were just notified that the Grand Princess has possible cases of COVID-19.
As soon as she said it, you're trained. It's like, okay, this is go time. Medical supplies were delivered, but it wasn't enough. And we knew that as we were getting reports of medical distress for passengers on board, that we were going to have to launch our Ready Cutter, the Coast Guard Cutter Turn, to effect the medical evacuation. We knew that this was the beginning, as there are other cruise ship ports around the United States, especially the port of Miami.
So far, every port in the ship's path has shut down, refusing to let the Zaandam dock.
It seemed as though every ship that came in, and there were about 125 of them, had different challenges, had different levels of COVID-like illness or COVID-positive patients on board. Our plan really was to communicate openly with one another as partners, to leverage each of our authorities so that when the cruise ships came in, we could get them home safely.
Turn was able to medevac 4 personnel from the Grand Princess and also transfer several doctors and medical supplies to the Grand Princess. It felt good to be at the center of that, flying that flag, coming back into the bay, knowing that everyone was watching, knowing that we were able to help all these people.
As a unified command, it was determined that the Port of Oakland had the space, had the security that would be able to carry out the safe disembarkation of the passengers.
I spent an awful lot of time in government, and I struggled to find another agency who could, as well as we did as a Coast Guard, engage our partners in our community and really help curate the emotion of the moment to help our community, our Coast Guard, and our nation through this crisis. I couldn't be prouder of the work we've all done together.
You can see how the Coast Guard collaborates with other agencies to complete the mission, no matter where, when, or what the call is. And while we can all appreciate the skill and training required to jump into immediate action, it takes more than that to get the job done. So I hope you will consider joining thousands of others across the nation who have stepped up to thank and support Coast Guard members by partnering with the Coast Guard Foundation to support these heroes and their families. Your help will ensure that, just like the Coast Guard, the Foundation is Semper Paratus, always ready. Thank you for being part of our community.
I think many of you would agree that if you had the opportunity to meet and interact with a Coast Guard member, you would say, what more can I do for them? Some encounters we have highlighted this evening are not only life-saving, but also life-changing. Coasties often say, I was just doing my job, but really it's so much more than that, and we owe them a great deal of gratitude. One of the priorities of the foundation is to focus on ways to support Coast Guard service members' physical and mental well-being. These things have a monumental impact on their wellness and morale. From stationary bikes for members aboard the Polar Star and the Arctic Circle to complete gym renovations at Air Station New Orleans. And these are only 2 examples of the 300 projects we funded in last year alone. Let's hear directly from Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard, Jason Vanderheyden. In his role, he serves as a principal advisor to the Commandant on all matters related to enlisted personnel. Master Chief Vanderheyden knows firsthand the importance of keeping up morale.
Thank you, Susan, for inviting me to be part of the Coast Guard Foundation's Heroes of the Coast Guard virtual program. It's a privilege to speak to our distinguished audience about the importance of morale and the impact it has on the well-being of the men and women of the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard Foundation works tirelessly to provide health and wellness gear like weightlifting, bicycles, and water sports equipment, along with recreation activities such as movie nights, grills, and cruise lounges, which dramatically improve the quality of life for our duty crews while they're on much-deserved liberty, especially after harrowing rescues or long hours on patrol. The positive impact the Foundation has on our members is incredible. The Coast Guard Foundation provides scholarships for our families, and Foundation donors have been by our side during some of our hardest challenges, when our service members needed it the most. Tonight, you saw rescues performed by our brave men and women during recent catastrophic storms. Let's not forget that these men and women live in the communities they serve and protect. Their families and their homes were impacted just as much as those they were helping. Our families are extremely grateful for the generous assistance the Foundation has provided to help repair and rebuild the homes that were destroyed during these extreme weather events. Many are called to a life of service to our great nation, their fellow Americans, and their communities, and with that life of service comes sacrifice. Never underestimate the big impact support to individuals or small units can have on the entire Coast Guard. Word travels fast about how much support we receive from the Coast Guard Foundation, and it has a positive ripple effect throughout the entire service. The Coast Guard is like a family, and when you support one, you are supporting all of us. I can tell you firsthand that your support makes a big difference to our morale and makes the tough challenges a little easier. Thoughtful support, like that provided by the Coast Guard Foundation, makes our lives better and the unique workplace challenges a little easier to bear. So on behalf of the enlisted servicemen and women of the United States Coast Guard, thank you to the Foundation and thank you for your support of the Foundation. Heroes really do need heroes.
The brave men and women of the United States Coast Guard sacrifice so much to serve our country. While they save lives and protect our shores, the Coast Guard Foundation steps up to support them, so every service member can focus on their mission worry-free, with concern for their health and wellness, support in their communities, with training, grants, and scholarships, in recovery when disaster strikes their homes. And when we tragically lose one of our own, we're there to provide comprehensive support to their families. These are hard times for our country, and there are new emerging needs at home. We stand with the Coast Guard, so their resolve is strong and their resilient families are supported, from enlistment to long after retirement. We strengthen the Coast Guard community by being there when and where they need us most. Learn more at coastguardfoundation.org.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor to support the members of the Coast Guard who selflessly protect, defend, and enhance the lives of all Americans. Help us today to give back. Your support, no matter what size of gift, is valuable and will make a difference in the lives of the brave men and women of the Coast Guard and their families. I invite you, Actually, I strongly encourage you to follow us on social media channels to keep up with the latest happenings. You can also visit our website or even call us. The staff at the Coast Guard Foundation is always ready to speak to you. Thanks to all of you, the Foundation is able to pivot with agility in our response to the unique needs of those family members where and when they need us the most. With your support, the Foundation stands shoulder to shoulder with those who serve in the U.S. Coast Guard. That's how we say thank you. And that's what you can do and how you can say thank you too. Even heroes need heroes. Answer the call and be one tonight. Thank you for your support and for joining us this evening. On behalf of the board and the staff of the Coast Guard Foundation and those we proudly serve, good night.
Thank you, Coast Guard Foundation, for all you do for us.
I'd like to say thank you to the Coast Guard Foundation for having our backs and making sure that us service members and our families are taken care of in times of need or tragedy, and it gives us the confidence to do everything we need to do.
I'd like to say thank you to the Coast Guard Foundation and to all its members for your unwavering support and commitment to our crews and families.
First of all, thank you to the Coast Guard Foundation for supporting the Coast Guard. After being hit by 2 historic storms in the city of Lake Charles, our Marine Safety Unit has been severely damaged. The homes of our members have been severely damaged, and we're thankful for the support that we've gotten to help to reestablish those homes and to support our members in getting their lives back in order. Thank you.
Thank you, Coast Guard Foundation, for the support that you provide not only myself, but for my shipmates and their families. It's nice to know that you have our backs so we can confidently carry out our day-to-day missions.
Thank you, Coast Guard Foundation, for all that you do for our service members and their families. Knowing that we have your support during times of need really gives us great peace of mind, and we can't thank you enough.